Welcome to the Leadership Art Podcast. I'm your host, Art Robbins, and it's great to have you join us. In today's article, our leadership lessons come from somewhere unexpected, not from a boardroom or a business book, but from the theater. Today, we're looking at one of the most devastating portraits of failed leadership ever written, Death of a Salesman, written by Arthur Miller in 1949. Nearly 80 years later, its warnings are as relevant as ever. If you haven't seen it, here's the short version. Willie Loman is a traveling salesman in his 60s. He spent his whole life chasing success, believing deeply and passionately that he is one deal, one relationship, one big break away from greatness. He's riding on a smile and a shoeshine. And then everything falls apart. What makes this story so powerful is this. If you've been in leadership long enough, you've probably met Willie Loman. And if you're honest, you may have even seen a little of him in yourself. So let's get into it. The world may look different than Willie Loman's in 1949, but the human dynamics haven't changed. Just update the props. Replace sample cases with trial apps, handshakes with impressions, smiles with emojis. The language changes, but the lessons don't. So what timeless leadership lessons can we learn from Willie Loman? First, being liked is not the same as being respected. Willie tells his son something he truly believes. Be liked and you will never want. And honestly, there is some truth in that. Relationships do matter. But Willie makes a dangerous mistake. He confuses charisma with credibility. And leaders do this all the time. They avoid difficult conversations. They soften feedback. They protect the mood instead of protecting the standard. Why? Because being liked feels good. But leadership isn't about approval. It's about trust. It's about delivering value consistently with integrity. Charm may open the door, but character is what keeps it open. The next lesson, self-deception is a leadership crisis, not a personality quirk. Willie doesn't just exaggerate his success. He starts living inside his own version of reality. He rewrites his failures as near wins. He turns missed opportunities into stories about bad luck. And this happens in organizations every day. When leaders stop telling themselves the truth, teams stop telling leaders the truth. Projects fail quietly. Problems get hidden. Feedback disappears. Self-awareness is not a soft skill. It's structural, because when a leader loses touch with reality, eventually the organization does too. The third lesson is quiet leaders often win. One of the most underrated characters in the play is Charlie, who is Willie's neighbor. Charlie's not flashy. He's not charismatic. He doesn't command attention when he walks into a room. But he's steady, honest, and reliable. And when Willie is struggling, Charlie offers him help. He even offers him a job. But Willie refuses because accepting help from Charlie would force Willie to admit something he can't handle, that real leadership doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes the strongest leader in the room is the one who isn't performing on stage at all. They're simply doing the work and telling the truth. Lesson 4 is don't turn mentorship into ego. Willie wants his son Biff to become the version of success Willie never became. But there's a problem. That's Willie's dream, not Biff's. Biff doesn't want the corporate path. He wants to work with his hands, not wear a suit. He's wired differently. And yet Willie keeps trying to force him into a life that doesn't fit. Leaders do this more often than they realize. They promote people who remind them of themselves, sometimes to validate their own story, their own ego. They mentor through projection instead of curiosity and empathy. But leadership isn't about creating copies of yourself. It's about understanding people and helping them become the strongest version of who they already are. The final lesson is don't tie your identity to your title. Willie is haunted by his brother Ben, who walked into a jungle, found a diamond, and came out rich. Willie sees success as a jackpot, a diamond in the dark. Today we may call this a unicorn. But sustainable leadership isn't a lucky break. It's not one big deal. It's the often boring, unglamorous work of building systems, relationships, capability, and character over time. Willie tied his entire worth to his title, and when he was no longer useful to his company, he began to believe he was no longer valuable as a human being. And in one of the play's darkest moments, he concluded that his life insurance policy made him worth more dead than alive. And he took his own life. That's the tragedy. If your sense of worth depends entirely on status, title, or professional output, your leadership and your life become incredibly fragile. You need to build an identity that outlasts your last big win. A leader with a strong identity is never used up. Well, these lessons are just as relevant today as they were in 1949. Death of a Salesman isn't a comfortable story. Arthur Miller wrote it to hold up a mirror to a culture that confuses hustle with meaning and performance with character. Willie Loman didn't fail because he lacked effort. He failed because he never stopped to define success for himself. He inherited someone else's definition of success: money, fame, popularity, and spent his entire life chasing it. As the world changed, Willie didn't. He refused to adapt. He retreated into illusion, and he projected his unfinished dreams onto others. In the play, Willie's wife, Linda, delivers one of its most haunting lines. Attention must be finally paid to such a person. Willie wasn't a bad man. He worked hard. He tried. He believed he was doing the right thing. And that's what makes his story so tragic, because it's a trap any hardworking person can fall into, chasing society's definition of success instead of your own. So here's my question for you this week. What are you actually building? True leadership is grounded in values, purpose, and character. Does it reflect your values, or is it just a smile and a shoeshine? Well, that's it for now on the Leadership Art Podcast. To all our listeners and followers, thank you for your continued support. And until next time, this is your host, Art Robbins, and remember, it's your lead.